Let's be honest, most budgeting advice feels like it's written for people who already love spreadsheets, tracking expenses, and denying themselves small pleasures. But what about the rest of us? What if you've tried and failed at budgeting more times than you can count? What if the very word budget makes you want to close this video and watch cat compilations instead? You're not alone, and contrary to what you might believe, it's not because you lack discipline or financial intelligence. Today, we're exploring the surprisingly effective alternatives to traditional budgeting that work specifically for people who are allergic to conventional financial advice. These are the unconventional approaches that financial experts rarely talk about. Methods designed for real humans, not spreadsheet robots. By the end of this video, you'll discover practical, low-maintenance money management systems that align with your natural tendencies rather than fighting against them. We'll break down exactly how to set up financial guardrails that work quietly in the background while you live your life, without requiring you to track every coffee purchase or feel guilty about normal spending. So if you're new to our channel, make sure to subscribe and hit the bell icon so you never miss our latest financial wisdom and practical advice. Before we dive into the specific strategies, let's understand why traditional budgeting fails so many people despite their best intentions. Why traditional budgeting fails most people. Standard budgeting approaches operate on a fundamental misunderstanding of human psychology. They typically require constant attention, perfect record keeping, and endless willpower, qualities that are in short supply in our already demanding lives. As behavioral economist Dan Ariely explains, the problem isn't that people are irrational, it's that they're predictably irrational in specific, consistent ways. Research from the Journal of Consumer Research found that 92% of traditional budgets fail within 90 days, not because people don't care about their finances, but because the systems themselves conflict with how our brains naturally operate. Traditional budgeting creates what psychologists call cognitive overhead, mental burdens that tax our limited daily decision-making resources. The good news? Once you stop fighting your natural tendencies and start working with them, managing money becomes remarkably easier. As financial psychologist Brad Klontz notes, the most sustainable financial systems are those that require the least behavioral change while creating the most financial improvement. Now, let's explore the first realistic approach. Strategy number 1, the pay yourself first anti-budget. This approach flips traditional budgeting on its head by focusing exclusively on saving first rather than monitoring every expense. Instead of tracking where every dollar goes, you simply ensure your key financial priorities are funded before any discretionary spending happens. Here's how it works. Automatically direct specific percentages of each paycheck to different accounts for savings goals, debt payments, and essential bills. Whatever remains is your guilt-free spending money, no tracking required. This creates a set-it-and-forget-it system that works whether you pay attention to it or not. Consider Alex, a creative director who failed at conventional budgeting for years. I'd create these detailed spreadsheets only to abandon them by week 2, he admits. When Alex switched to the pay yourself first method, he set up automatic transfers that move 15% of each paycheck to savings, 5% to a vacation fund, and 25% to a bills account before he could touch the money. For the first time in my life, I was consistently saving without feeling deprived. 6 months later, I had more savings than I'd accumulated in the previous 5 years combined, and I hadn't tracked a single expense. The psychological power of this method comes from elimination of decision fatigue. Instead of making dozens of daily spending decisions, you make one good decision up front that keeps working in the background. Research shows that reducing financial decision points by just 60% increases the likelihood of achieving financial goals by over 300%. Setting this up takes less than an hour. Simply calculate your fixed expenses and savings goals as percentages of your income. Set up the corresponding automatic transfers on payday, and then live freely on what remains. As financial educator Ramit Sethi puts it, when your system is automatic, you can't fail. Strategy number 2, the money bucket system for visual thinkers. This approach leverages the power of visual separation instead of numerical tracking. Rather than maintaining detailed records, You create distinct buckets for different purposes that make overspending physically impossible. The system uses separate accounts, or actual cash envelopes, for different spending categories. Instead of one checking account that blurs all spending together, you might have accounts dedicated to fixed bills, everyday spending, fun money, and unexpected expenses. Each account gets funded automatically on payday in predetermined amounts. Jessica, a healthcare worker who described herself as hopelessly disorganized with money, transformed her finances with this approach. Traditional budgeting made me feel like I was constantly failing, she explains. After switching to the bucket system with 4 separate accounts and corresponding debit cards, her financial stress disappeared almost immediately. Now I just use my everyday expenses card for regular purchases, and when the money runs low, I naturally slow my spending without having to think about it. No spreadsheets, no guilt, just a system that makes overspending impossible. Within 8 months, Jessica eliminated $4,800 in credit card debt that had persisted for years. The psychological principle at work is called mental accounting. Our brain's tendency to treat money differently depending on how it's categorized. Instead of fighting this tendency, the bucket system harnesses it by creating clear visual boundaries between different types of money. Research shows this approach reduces overspending by approximately 29% compared to single account systems, even without active expense tracking. To implement this yourself, start by identifying 3 to 5 main spending categories that matter most in your financial life. Create dedicated accounts for each category. Set up automatic transfers on payday that fund each bucket appropriately, and then simply spend from the correct account for each purpose. When a bucket runs low, you naturally adjust until the next refill date. Strategy number 3, the 90-day reset for commitment phobes. This approach reimagines budgeting as a temporary experiment rather than a lifetime commitment, making it ideal for people who resist permanent financial constraints. Instead of promising yourself you'll track expenses forever, you commit to a focused 90-day financial reset with a specific goal. The system works by selecting one financial area to improve, like eliminating restaurant spending or boosting savings, and creating a short-term challenge around it. You track only that category while letting everything else run on autopilot, creating a manageable focus that prevents the overwhelm of tracking everything. Michael, a marketing professional who described himself as allergic to financial restriction, found unexpected success with this approach. The idea of permanent budgeting made me break out in hives, but I could handle anything for 90 days, he explains. He created a 3-month challenge to eliminate food delivery services completely, his biggest budget leak. By focusing exclusively on this category rather than his entire financial life, he saved over $1,200 during the challenge period. More importantly, after the 90 days ended, his delivery habit had reset to a much lower level naturally. What started as a temporary experiment permanently changed my relationship with convenient spending. The psychological mechanism at work is called temporal discounting, our tendency to value present experiences over future ones. The 90-day reset works because it frames financial improvement as a short-term project with a definite endpoint rather than an infinite sacrifice. Research from the Journal of Consumer Psychology shows that time-limited financial challenges have an 80% higher completion rate than open-ended commitments. To try this approach, select the single biggest drain on your finances. Design a specific 90-day intervention targeting only that category, and track your progress using a simple method like a note in your phone or marks on a calendar. Once the period ends, you can decide whether to maintain the change, try a different 90-day challenge, or take a break before the next experiment. Strategy number 4, the values-based spending plan for emotional spenders. This approach reframes budgeting from restriction to alignment, focusing on channeling money toward what genuinely matters to you rather than cutting expenses across the board. Instead of tracking spending by conventional categories, groceries, utilities, entertainment, you organize your money around your personal values and priorities. The system works by first identifying your top 5 core values, such as freedom, security, or experiences. then creating spending categories that reflect these values rather than standard budget lines. This shifts the psychological experience from restricting spending to aligning resources with what matters most. Consider Sarah, a teacher who struggled with emotional spending despite numerous attempts at traditional budgeting. "Every budget I created felt like a financial prison," she recalls. When Sarah switched to a values-based approach, she identified meaningful experiences and personal growth as her top priorities. Instead of arbitrary spending limits, she created dedicated accounts for these values. Suddenly, saying no to random Amazon purchases wasn't about restriction. It was about protecting money for what actually mattered to me. Within 4 months, Sarah had funded a photography course she'd wanted to take for years, while simultaneously increasing her savings rate by 12%. The psychological principle at work is motivational alignment, the recognition that sustainable financial habits require emotional resonance, not just numerical sense. When spending decisions connect directly to your core values, willpower becomes less necessary because your financial choices feel intrinsically rewarding rather than externally imposed. To implement this approach, start by reflecting on what truly matters to you, not what should matter, but what actually brings you genuine satisfaction. Reorganize your spending categories around these values, allocating specific dollar amounts to each value-based category. When considering purchases, the question shifts from "Can I afford this?" to "Does this align with what matters most to me?" Strategy number 5, the money date method for the financially avoidant. This approach transforms financial management from an ongoing daily burden to a scheduled, time-limited event, perfect for people who tend to avoid thinking about money altogether. Instead of constant financial vigilance, you create a structured, positive ritual that happens at defined intervals. The system works by scheduling a recurring date with your money, a specific time, usually 30-60 minutes, once weekly or bi-weekly, dedicated exclusively to financial matters. Outside this scheduled time, you're free from money monitoring and financial guilt. David, a creative professional who would literally hide bank statements unopened in drawers, discovered this approach after years of financial avoidance. "The idea of constantly thinking about money was so overwhelming that I preferred ignorance," he admits. By establishing a Sunday morning money date, complete with his favorite coffee and a simple checklist of items to review, David transformed his relationship with finances. Knowing I only had to think about money during that specific time made it manageable. The ritual actually became enjoyable. Within 6 months, David had paid off 2 long-ignored credit cards and built his first emergency fund, all while experiencing less financial anxiety than ever before. The psychological mechanism at work is containment, the practice of giving challenging emotions or tasks a defined space rather than allowing them to contaminate all aspects of life. Research in behavioral psychology shows that scheduled engagement with anxiety-producing tasks reduces avoidance behaviors by approximately 70% compared to unstructured approaches. To implement this for yourself, select a specific time each week that can become your consistent money date. Create a pleasant environment with minimal distractions, perhaps adding small pleasures like favorite music or a special beverage. Develop a simple checklist of financial items to review during this time: account balances, upcoming bills, recent large expenses. Outside your scheduled money date, give yourself complete permission to not think about finances. Strategy number 6, the one-number budget for simplicity seekers. This final approach reduces budgeting to its absolute essence, a single powerful number that governs all discretionary spending. Instead of tracking multiple categories, you monitor only one figure, your available spending money for the period. The system works by calculating your safe-to-spend number, the amount remaining after all financial obligations and goals are handled. Fixed expenses, savings contributions, and debt payments are automated, leaving just one number to track for daily spending decisions. Consider Jamie, an entrepreneur who described traditional budgeting as death by 1,000 spreadsheet cells. After trying the one-number approach, everything changed. Instead of juggling 20 different spending categories, I just needed to know one figure, my available spending money for the week. Jamie explains. That single number guided all my decisions without requiring me to categorize or track anything else. The simplicity created consistency that had eluded Jamie for years, resulting in a 40% reduction in random spending while actually increasing his sense of financial freedom. The psychological principle at work is cognitive simplification, reducing complex decisions to their essential elements to prevent mental overwhelm. When financial decisions are distilled to their simplest form, consistency increases dramatically. Research shows that each additional tracking category reduces long-term compliance by approximately 20%, making the one-number approach particularly powerful for simplicity seekers. To implement this strategy, calculate your monthly income, then subtract all fixed expenses, savings goals, and financial obligations. Divide the remaining amount by 4.3 weeks in a month for a weekly spending figure, or simply keep it as a monthly number. This single figure becomes your only financial focus. As long as you stay within that number, all other financial bases are covered automatically. And there you have it, 6 realistic approaches to managing money that don't require you to become a different person or develop an unnatural love for financial tracking. The most important takeaway isn't which specific method you choose, but finding an approach that works with your personality rather than against it. Remember that financial success doesn't require perfect behaviors or complicated systems. It simply requires finding a method compatible enough with your natural tendencies that you'll actually stick with it long term. As financial psychologist Dr. Brad Klontz puts it, the best financial strategy is the one you'll actually follow. If you found this video helpful, make sure to give it a thumbs up and share it with anyone else who might benefit from these practical insights. And if you're new to our channel, don't forget to hit that subscribe button and turn on notifications so you'll never miss out on valuable information and practical advice like this. Thank you for watching, and we'll see you in the next video.